I have had that thought many, 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 many times in my career, but I'm sure like you starting this podcast, I'm sure like you with everything you wanted to do when you got that second chance, it's like you realize that no one's going to give you permission to do something. No one's going to give you approval. No one's going to say you're ready. No one's going to say, like, everybody wants degrees or acknowledgement. I wanted it in acting so many times and I couldn't get it because somebody's going to be a fan of you, somebody's not. And you just have to have this insane belief in yourself. Who better to bet on than yourself?
All right, welcome back to the 1% Bttr Podcast. Today we have on Kyle Klaus. Kyle, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. And we were talking on air or off air before we went on air about how this is kind of a really cool full circle moment. So Kyle and I have known each other for, golly, it's probably 15 years at this point, maybe more. And I did acting in my early 20s, and Kyle was the guy that really helped me get started with where to go for an agent. Shout out to MG Eisenhart. I think that was her name.
Yeah. Reinhardt Agency.
Reinhardt Agency.
Somebody else there too.
Yep. Started there. And then I got my headshots. I went up to New York. I cannot remember her name though, of who I went to. She was in Brooklyn. I remember driving up from Pennsylvania to get my headshots done there. Anyway,
you might have started going on your own there. I don't know if
yeah. It was super cool because that was really such an introduction to a world that I wanted to get into, and you were kind enough to speak to me without knowing me before, have a mutual connection. Shout out to the Boyd family, big help there. And really cool to see it come full circle of we've just talked through the years on social media and shared similar ideas on things. Really excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's amazing how long we've known each other on just via this.
Yeah, totally. So for the folks that don't know you out there, I mean, there's a number of things that I can rattle off of who you are and what you've done. But for the folks that are new to your journey, could you give us a little bit of background about yourself and what got you to this point?
My gist of what I am now is I'm an actor, professional actor, SAG-AFTRA actor, producer, real estate investor, real estate broker owner, and now a film festival owner. And I've owned a couple businesses there also throughout the side on the side, but those are my main things. And getting to where I am now, we came from the same town, Pottstown, PA, and just going into college, kind of just like as an extension of high school, and then really just figuring it out in college to really where I wanted to be. And with the acting stuff, I would say as far as my professional career, I can give credit to acting as the thing that started everything. Mm-hmm. As far as what was my ultimate why, what was my dream to do, and that's where I found acting. The ball started rolling, and got involved in a couple things in Philadelphia, local things, led me up to New York. The ball kept rolling, and then that led me into real estate because I needed to find something flexible and make money and not just be if the career took a long time, be a 40-year-old waiter or something. So I got into real estate, and that got me into with the Boyd family as well. Jim Boyd, and he taught me everything I knew when I first got into the real estate business. And they both led me up to New York area because I kind of at that point had to make a choice. It wasn't like it is today with video auditions. So I kind of just went into, everything was in person. So I had to drive to New York City, and that was taking my whole day out. And I was just like, well, acting's one of the top two places, LA and New York in the world, and real estate's much better. So I kind of just was like, all right, this is a no-brainer. and I moved up here, and the rest is history. It's been about 10 years now, and just pushing forward on all cylinders.
It's incredible how it comes full circle like that. And I know that that's kind of the theme that we've been keep saying, full circle, but it really is cool how acting has opened so many doors for different endeavors that you've wanted to explore. For it being a creative art, it's almost a curious art too, because you've allowed yourself to try different things out. Like you said, you've built a very impressive career across multiple industries: real estate, acting, production. But I do want to go back to the beginning for a moment of being in Pottstown. If you can go to your childhood, even looking back, was there an early stage where you started recognizing, I'm a little bit wired differently than the typical go to school, graduate school, sit in the same job or similar for a long period of time, where you started figuring out I'm wired a little bit differently than normal?
Probably one of the earliest things I can think of is, and I think there's one of two people this way. You're either going to, when you tell somebody, hey, you can't do something, that person goes, I will, if I want it bad enough or I want to do it, I will die trying to prove you that I can do that. And then there's the other set of the people that are like, hey, you can't do something. And then they back off and they're like, well, I'll show you, I'll go the other way. Like, F you, and I'm going. So I think early on, I was always that like competitive, wanted to be driven person, whether it was sport. It was definitely sports for the most part. So sports were huge with me, very competitive. And then, it was the normal stuff growing up. I mean, like, wired differently, I always just thought I wanted to do something great. I didn't know what that was. It was just in my mind, it was like the greats, like Michael Jordan. I wanted to be in the NBA when I was early on. And, being a 5'9" white guy, I'm not built for it, like this perfect thing. But hey, look, nothing's impossible. Put it that way. There's definitely 5'9" white guys in the NBA. But I think I got to a point in like maybe college where, or even high school, where I realized like that's not what I wanted to do fully. I wanted I had that like great mentality to do something great, but it was just kind of like, I'm kind of cool with just partying with my friends and hanging out, and just like I want to enjoy life too and not be like that. So then it was kind of figuring it out. And I do remember one thing. I was 14 years old, and two things. One, I remember, I haven't told this story ever before, really. This is honestly weird. I remember, wanting so bad to like get like, I wanted so many things that were kind of out of my control. Like I wanted to grow, get bigger and all this stuff. And I was like, I would buy shoes that were like 2 inches too much to like think.
Same thing.
Yeah. So guess what? One thing that happened to me, my dad would push me all the time, and I got really mad at him one time, and he was making me mow the grass. And I think it was right after a rain, and I pulled back on the mower, and it went over my foot. And for a minute there, I laid up staring at the sky and was like, oh my God, I thought I was in shock that my foot was going to get cut off. Yeah. And wouldn't you know, it cut off the end of my shoe, but it didn't touch my foot. And then I was like, wow, that would have been the end of my career. So right. that gave me a sense of like gratitude for just like, I don't care if I don't grow another, I don't care if I don't get bigger, grow another, I don't care what's out of my control. I'm just grateful for being who I am and being in the place that I am now. And that was, I remember that being like, just the showing of gratitude and being like, hey, that's what's most important. But then I do remember one thing about my sister being born at like, when I was 14, I was already kind of an adult. And I remember thinking then, like, just the quick math in my head going, wow, I'm going to be 28 by the time she's my age. I better be doing something cool. And that kind of like started getting the gears thinking of what did I want to do? And then it kind of just wasn't until college where for some reason around like when I had to pick a major, I just got this crazy impending doom feeling of like figuring out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And even though you didn't really have to, I mean, now you get a college degree, it's like a high school degree, but that was one thing that I was like, okay, it gave me a deep sense of like searching, and then was just like, well, that's what I want to do with the rest. Like, I can't pick one thing. I want to experience everything. And that's kind of what led me down the acting route.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. And I love that you shared about the shoes too, because oddly enough, I did something very similar. I went from being listed at 5'10", 5'11" my senior year to being a 5'8", 5'9" guy after I graduated. So I don't know where I shrunk, but I like how you touch on the mentality that you had too of wanting to try different things and not limit yourself, because at least to our knowledge, we get one shot at this of doing what you want to pursue. And I think there's evolutions and chapters of your life where things make more sense then than they do now, or versus later. You've said that your dad has really instilled this intense work ethic for you, especially on the early years and the formative years, which are super important. Is there something that he said or did that really stuck with you and still plays in your head to this day?
Well, he was always just like, you work every day of your life. Now, I remember, and that's gotten me out of trouble. Like, I haven't done that, like I can't say, but the mentality of it, of like, there's always some work to be done. There's always something to do. And it also keeps you a little bit out of trouble. Like, I know that if if I know that if I didn't have the acting, there'd be some things of me that I maybe wouldn't care about. Like, I remember early on being like, not, like, I don't know if I'd care about my health and my, looks that much. I don't know if I'd care about if I would have gotten more fights in college, even though I did. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's just a certain sense of like, you got to maintain your instrument and work. But I mean, trying to think. I mean, he was just instilling about working every day of your life. Probably kept him out of trouble. Who knows? Like the drinking aspect or whatever. Like you go down the wrong hole. But if you're set to like, you're gonna get up and grind it out. Like you got to be in somewhat of a good shape. Now
it's regimented. It's regimented. It's having a discipline and making sure that you're putting your best foot forward, because we were talking off air before, like getting a second shot, but also making sure that you're making the most out of what you're given, because there are people that aren't capable of doing what you're doing or what I'm doing, and they would give anything to get those opportunities. So I feel like that is, hey, you get an opportunity for tomorrow, you better damn well put your best foot forward towards it if you're gonna get that shot. I think that's super important, especially with when you're young. And I'll give the shout out to I worked for a contractor late high school and then the college years and a little bit post college. And I didn't really know what hard work was until you start going on these labor jobs and demoing and putting yourself in these situations. Like, holy moly, these guys do this every single day. And you get home around 4:00 and you're like, I can't even move. So
well, and it might have been out of necessity from his standpoint. My dad, from having 4 kids and having a machine shop type job, that's where I grew up with that mentality. He was in an auto plant, and like maybe he had to do it, but either way, whether you have to do it or you want to do it, it's the same skill set. You have to get up and grind it out no matter what, and make yourself get there. And whether it's your responsibilities or wherever you find that motivation being, you just have to do it. And there is a story that I had in college where it's one of the pivotal moments where I remember, I used to do the normal thing where I would have odds and ends jobs, wings to go. I think I counted at one time, it was like 16 jobs when I was younger, like lifeguard, wings to go, this, that, and the other thing, cement, I did labor and stuff. But then in college, I would do lifeguarding in the summers and then blow through everything and just do nothing throughout the year except go to school and party and all that. And I'd pretty much dwindle my money down by the end of it. And I remember in May, right before we got off for the year, I got my car towed. And I remember it was like this weird, like, and dude, where's my car was a big thing at the time. And I remember walking out and being like, dude, where's my car? And my buddy was cracking up, but like it got towed from our fraternity house. And I went to this guy, and he was just this big bearded, like tough toe guy. And I was like, yeah, I came from my car, and he's like, yeah, it's $100. And I was like, dude, I had 50 to my name. And I was like, listen, man, it's just, I was trying to bargain with him and all this stuff. And he was like, I'm going to keep your license. You're going to pay me the 50. And then the next 50 you're going to have, like, you're going to, he kept the picture of my license and all that stuff. And then I owed it to him. I was the first time I was ever in debt. Like, literally didn't. Now I could have went to my parents and all that. Everybody's like level of thing is different, but I remember that was the worst feeling. That was kind of the light that got me thinking in my head, I will never not work another day in my life. And that got me just like, I will never not have another job.
Right.
That was the thing. So it was from that point on, it was like always having a job with money in my pocket to always have that feeling. And that just kept going and going and going. And then it just got, light years ahead.
And I think once you get a taste of it, that you can control your outcome. Like, I think there's a certain degree of that. There's always control the controllables, but there's also this ambition that you get, and this hunger with, oh, I can actually make $1 to my name and not be in the situations that other people are in. I mean, how many people can you count that are in that type of debt way, way worse than just owing $50?
Yeah.
And they're a slave to other outcomes instead of controlling their own outcomes.
Right.
I mentioned ambition, but I do think there is a fine line between relentless ambition and burnout. Burnout, a lot of people deal with in multiple different facets. Prestige properties, acting, producing content. Have you had a moment where you've pushed too far and had to recognize, like, okay, I've hit my limit? Or have you felt pretty balanced through the years?
No, 100%. Every year. Every year I do. Because I get more and more, and I have to figure out how to refine this. We have this one instrument, right? And you need to, and I always think about it like running it like a well-oiled machine. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do the same things you were doing when you're 20, but then also you have a lot more responsibility and a lot more stuff going on. So I hit that point many times. I mean, there was a couple actual like scares I had right before my daughter was born, maybe in like I was like mid-30s, and I don't know what I was doing. I was just drinking like a pot of coffee. I was sleeping 4 hours, 5 hours a night. And it was working until it wasn't. And I ended up getting I had like a health issue that came up with my eye. I started getting a blurry vision in the one eye. And then that scared me. And I was like, what if this doesn't go away? But my thing that I did was just keep motoring on. And it got worse and worse and worse. And I went to the eye doctor, and it was like, what in type A males, stress and caffeine. I stopped all of them and went right away. But the point being is that you can't keep going on like this and just barrel through everything. There's going to come a breaking point. So it's been very important to me to have a morning routine that sets me up. The normal things, but the normal things are not easy to abide by all the time. I got started with the I got started with the law of attraction type stuff.
Love it.
People can think it's woo woo, but it's like there's definitely scientific properties from those teachings that have worked for people. And it's more about how you present yourself in the world, and you go about, the universe bringing you things, but it's only because you're doing the actions in the way that you attract them. And, that got me going, but then I'm recognizing that it's hard work. You need to meet it with hard work. You can't just sit there and,
think it's going to come.
You have to put the action in. So with the action always came to me, refining my sleep, tracking my sleep. Now I make sure I at least get like 6 hours, and I'm cutting out alcohol before bed as much as possible, of course, but like, it's about refining these things so that I don't get burnout. because and Tony Robbins calls it priming yourself. I do take about a good 30 minutes before I go to the gym in the morning. I get to the gym first in the morning because I was never a morning person, ever. But knowing that if I don't get to it then, I'm not going to get to it, just me personally, at the end of the day. I don't want to do it after, a work day. Some people can. You just got to, it's more about knowing yourself, I think, and what works for you and building it around that. But it's definitely been I'm in my well-oiled machine time when I'm waking up early, doing my visualization, checking in with my body. That's another thing that I think is a secret sauce, like stretching. 5-10 minutes stress before. That's like the magic pill, right? Like that, stretching for 5-10 minutes. You get the guys at the gym that are like, what are you stretching for? I mean, nobody says it anymore, but when I was younger, and it's like, nah, this is what prevents injury so that,
you can keep going, because how many people jump in the gym? Let's take New Year's resolutions, for example. Yeah. Jump in the gym, beginning of the year, they put what they maybe have lifted a year ago or two, whatever the last time they were there, and they end up pulling a muscle, and then they're out and they can't do it again. So
then you're out.
I want to ask you real quick.
Yeah.
Morning routine. What's the morning routine like? I know that you mentioned going to the gym, visualization, the law of attraction, huge on that myself, or others call it the secret. What does a morning routine look like for Kyle Klaus?
Yeah. So this is something that I've developed over the years. What works for me is as efficient as possible in time for what I think I get out of it. It is, I get up, first thing I do, I have the coffee on from the night before. I hit that. I got warm water. I drink a whole thing of warm water. It actually wakes your organs up before you're throwing caffeine in it, right? So, some people say you can go to the 10th degree and say, hey, look, I do warm water with lemon and sea salt and stuff like that. Warm water is, you're 95% more than anybody else is doing. So let's just stick with warm water. So I do that because I think that really does wake your organs up naturally. Visualizing where I want to be. I got a lovely view of New York City, so that inspires me. But I've been, wherever you're at, the ocean, a tree, a mountain, a sunrise, little inspiration, little visualization of where you want to be, where I know I'm going. Cause I think that's the most important thing. And this is 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes. This is visualizing in all aspects of my acting career, my real estate career, my, family life even. So, just family life. And then checking in with myself. This is a big thing I heard. This is literally 2 minutes, just going head to toe. It's you can detect where illnesses or something might be in your body before, you have a good detection meter. Everybody does. But if you don't pay attention to that, that's going to be another burnout thing where you're just going and you're not paying attention to where you might have strain or I can tell a couple times. I don't know about you, but talking about the injury stuff, I could tell something's coming in my back before but I keep pushing it. And then 2 weeks later, it goes out to where my back.
I'm big with the shoulders.
Shoulders too. Yeah.
Feeling that tightness.
And I can detect that earlier. But just that's helped me. Just check in, doing a little meditation, we're talking about 2-3 minutes, and getting the coffee, obviously going to the gym. It's a tight thing at the gym where it's a 5-minute stretch, 10-minute abs, 15 minutes supersetting weight training, and then 15 minutes or 20 minutes cardio. So it's keeps me not bored, but it hits everything. And then cold showers now. I actually put that in because everybody's into the cold baths. And I'm forgetting ice and a bath and all that stuff. Come on, that's burnout to me. I'm going to do that for a little bit, unless I'm set up and I'm where I have an ice bath all set for me. You do it. I would almost guarantee you do a 1 minute countdown free ice cold shower. And I'm not talking about the whole shower. That's another thing people mistaken for. You get in, you take a normal shower, and then you start turning it colder, get a little used to it. And then you zap it cold and you count for 60 seconds and you're done. And I feel like that gets at least for me, gets the same kind of thing out.
It definitely does. And I like how you mentioned about the cold plunges. If you were to do it like with a bath or something like that, it's like, is it sustainable? And I think
Right.
that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is sustainability and making sure that they can repeatedly do it. Like making sure that a morning routine is set up for you. You're like, everybody's different, but
Hmm.
you found a morning routine that you can stick with repeatedly. I kind of, not an analogy, but I think about it even with protein shakes. Like if you are putting in peanut butter, like actual peanut butter or something else that dirties up your blender and it takes a while to clean, you're going to lose motivation to do that every single day, to make that something that should take very quickly. You get your protein and whatever else you have in there and then move on to the next thing.
You call I what I've come. I've been doing this for a long time. What I've come to find out about this is a little bit of, and I'm not. I'm just learning about this, but it's called habit stacking. And I've been realizing that I've been doing this. I don't know if it's actually the term for it, but
No, I
what
think
I
you're right. I'm pretty
what
sure it's
I
habit
do
stacking.
is I try to make it built in my routine so efficiently that I am either doing it or can almost forget about doing it, and it's done for me. Like for instance, the little thing about picking out my here's a quick example. Picking out my clothes to go to the gym the night before and sitting them on a bench instead of being tired as anything in the morning, not thinking straight, rummaging around in the dark or waking up my wife or trying to get clothes. I set them there. It's out in the hallway. Boom, boom, boom. Put it on. Efficient. And little things like that you can kind of do as much as possible. And everybody's going to be different. That's what I think will prevent the burnout and help you stay in the routine.
I'd love that you point that out too. I think it's super powerful, even for people that get the Sunday scaries, as that term has been coined over the last handful of years. Sunday scaries, and I think a big part of that is you just don't have the preparation in order. The preparation for what the week is to come. Like, are
Right.
you ready for Monday? Are you ready for Tuesday? And the more you can prepare, like you said, putting the clothes out, as simple as that, has been is helpful because it limits your thought having to make decisions early on when you're just you're kind of in robot mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like, let me just go through the motions in order to do what I have to do.
Well, one more thing I'll point out is that I think it's important for me at least, and I don't know if this would help anybody else out, but make something about what you're doing enjoyable. Like if it's talking about getting up early,
Mm.
I can't. Nothing is worse to me than waking up out of bed and running to the gym. That would be torture to me. I know, at least 30 to 45 minutes. I mean, maybe could I do it? Sure, if I was in the army long enough and I had to do it. But like right now, I'm good. I'll just get up 30 minutes earlier and take my time and enjoy the morning and then
Totally.
go to the gym. And that's what's found me. People are like, I can't believe you go to the gym at 5 in the morning. It's like, well, I'm up at 4:15, and then I'm up for 45 minutes doing my little thing, getting myself ready and mentally prepared, and I'm ready to hit it.
What time are you asleep?
Good question. I like to be at. This is another thing with sleep tracking. I've been doing intermittent fasting, and I
Nice.
try to sleep at least 6 hours of restful sleep.
Mm.
Everybody thinks they might be asleep for 7, 8 hours, but they're in bed and it's not true sleep. So I use
Oh,
a Aura ring,
nice.
and a sleep track and a iWatch. You can easily track your sleep with either of those things.
Yeah.
Most people don't like wearing iWatches to bed, but you get over it. Yeah,
Yeah. We're good.
you got to get over some things and just it's good for you. And yeah, I've tracked that, and I've noticed that if I get 6 hours of restful sleep and I stop eating by 6 o'clock or so, and I get to bed by 9:30, 10,
Mm.
I'm up by 4:15. That I'll get the 6 hours. I might be asleep in 7, but I'll get up, go to the bathroom, whatever.
Love it.
But like there'll be 6 hours of restful sleep, and then I feel I could fly through the day.
My time's 6. I do 6, and I want to get it lower. Haven't got there yet, but in due time and
Increments.
increments.
I didn't get up that early over the winter, and it took me probably like 3 weeks to get back to it.
Mm.
I had to do a half an hour earlier each day just to get used to it again.
Hey, just like the premise, 1% better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
There's this. I love everything that you're talking about because it's a passion that I've had for years of this self-improvement, personal growth, understanding what works for you versus other people. You mentioned Jordan earlier. Huge Jordan fan, Tiger, Kobe, Brady, all the goats as we call them, but they all have done what has worked really well for them, plus their God-given talent. You've been on sets with some amazing talents through the years. I mean, let's call one that I remember, Mark Wahlberg being one, and he has his regimen out there of what he does and going through that. When you're on sets with some of these best actors in the world, what's something that separates them from the greats and the goods, or just the ones that are kind of coming through the motions? What have you noticed or picked up through the years and even put into your own routine then?
Well, I mean, the one thing that I think is super important to realize is that they were all human and that I could do the exact same thing as they were doing. Maybe not at that exact time, but there was nothing that I felt was, it's kind of like a catch-22, because you're looking at your heroes that you want them to be this thing that's unattainable, that's like, you're looking up to these heroes, but you realize they are a human. Yet they have done things that other humans haven't because of their discipline in that area of where they're at. Yeah. So it was great to realize that Mark was just a normal human being. He was the coolest that he could be. I mean, after I met him on Invincible, he's somebody I've looked up to a long time. And you look up to people in different ways and for different reasons. He was just somebody that I looked up to, that I was like, okay, not many people come from where we come from that say they want to be an actor or do acting. You were kind of like, hey, this guy doing acting, what's he like? Like in high school, there was no high school arts that we were in. It wasn't like growing up in New York City or LA or something like that. And it was always feeling like it was somewhere out there that you would do it. So the point being is, like, I always felt like he was a guy that was from, tough neighborhood, like Boston. He was a tough dude. He was like, he was somebody that I would aspire to be like, and be, in the acting world. And what I got from him was, it was really cool, being on set. Just a quick story. I remember done Invincible one day. He was, I was one of the ball boys on there. It was like one of my first acting jobs as a SAG actor. And, but it was amazing. I was on set for like 2 weeks. My job was to hold the football. And he came by one time because it was instructed not to give the football to anybody because they needed it for filming. And all the football players wanted to have catches, and was like, you do not give this to anybody. You're the ball boy. And then Mark goes, hey, man. I mean, what am I going to – I was like, I don't care if I get fired from this, and I'm throwing the ball with Mark Wahlberg. So I started having a catch with him, and it was great. And then afterwards, I was walking by, and he just, waved himself over, and it was like, hey, man, how you doing? I'm Mark. And in my head, real quick, I was thinking, like, no shit, I know who the fuck you are.
Right.
But I was like, oh, great. Nice to meet you. I'm Kyle. And he was like, well, come by and grab a beer. So I put my clothes away. I went back and grabbed the beer, and I just knew he was like a normal dude. And that's what I loved about him in that aspect. What I have found out with a lot of actors is, on a high level, they all have something else going on. That's another thing that I've realized from professional actors. And the thing, I don't know if this is true, but it's my hypothesis, is that acting is such a game that you don't know when you're even the top don't know where the next job's coming from. You could be iced out for a while and not doing much. You have a cold streak, not the hot person. But if you have something else sustaining yourself, and I've realized that all these guys did, and most people think, oh, they get to this place and then they have something going on. Like, don't be a producer, because you got to be like Mark Wahlberg status first, and then you become a producer, or Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt, and then you open a restaurant and all this other stuff. It's like, no, that's only because you know of them then, and then they get the restaurant. There's a lot of people that have come up, and when I realized I was on the right track for a lot of these people is hearing Jeremy Renner's story and Arnold Schwarzenegger's story. They were millionaires before you ever knew their name. They were in real estate, investments, stuff like that. And they had that entrepreneurial status. And the reason I think it helps some people, maybe not everybody, but is because I feel more at ease. When you're acting, you can't go to an audition going, oh man, if I don't get this job, I'm going to be not able to pay rent. That's going to create an extra stress that you're not going to be able to be at ease to do the job you're there supposed to do.
Right.
So I think very early on, and now I've come to realize that was the best thing that I could have done for myself, is set myself up in other avenues where I don't care. I don't need this job. I want the job.
Takes the pressure off and allows you to be your best version of yourself then when you're going for an audition. It's kind of like you grew up playing hoops.
Yeah.
When the pressure's off and you're up 15 or 20, that three-pointer feels a little bit easier than if it's to tie a game. I mean, you're still going to hit it, but at the same time, having that pressure off just by setting yourself up with these different pillars, it's basically your foundation.
Yeah.
You have that entire foundation to live off of then, where it's just like, yeah, if I get it, I get it. But if
and
not,
then I 100% agree with that. And then I think also doing the reps after that just creates that non-pressure when you're in the pressure moments, and getting to do it so much that, now you see the greats taking the high pressure shots, and they're like, it's easy for them because they've done the reps, like they've practiced so much, they've done so much. And it's kind of like, what we're saying, I'm kind of going off two different things, but like,
you're good.
That is exactly what it's about. It's like not having that, whatever it is for you, just not feel that pressure to be able to, that's when you're going to be your best and play your best and do your best.
It's a tough dynamic to a degree too, because it's like, take the pressure off yourself, but it's easier said than done. But I do totally agree. The preparation leads to proper execution. And with that preparation is the reps. I think one of our guys that, I mean, he was on the circuit after he retired and then passed away, was Kobe. Just talking about, like, I don't feel pressure in games just because I've done it so many times. And that's not just for sports. That's with acting too. I'm sure you go through your repetition, your process and routine of how you get ready for a role and set up for it through those things.
Yeah. And then I think that's different for each person too. I've been through, that's another thing that I don't think you can tell somebody how to do it. You just have to go do it and do your reps however that looks for you. I mean, the one thing I've noticed about some of the greats with acting is like, they all have their own unique things. And it works for them. I remember Mark doing, and I wasn't on the inside. I just knew his people that he worked with doing this was like just repping the scene for the next day, going over. You could say it so many different ways, how you inflect on certain things or stress certain parts of like what you're saying. But then for somebody else, it's like, I don't even care about the lines. I just want to live the life. And that's my instrument. And that's what I've learned about acting, which has been great, is that everybody's approach is different. And it's whatever works for you. And I've went through every single acting approach that I could think about. And just like with my morning routine, just like with anything else, I've discarded what didn't work and I've kept on what worked for me. Like, I've had acting coaches say, you don't got to memorize anything. Just read it over and it'll come out of you. And I'm like, I've tried that. And listen,
not the case.
God bless anybody else that has done that. But when you're sitting there in front of an audience or a camera and you don't know what you're saying, I mean, I could make stuff up now at this point, but when you're a new actor coming up, and why would you want to make something up? So you got to learn your stuff, and I want to get it in my body. Like I just did a lead audition for the lead in a Netflix film. I don't know how I got that. Usually I'm getting like guest star, recurring stuff like that. I got a lead in a new. I can't tell you what it is exactly, but it's
That's
like a remake of an old series, and it would be very cool if I got it. But I knew that for the last 3 days, I'm just going to rep these lines out so that I don't even have to think about the lines. I can just prepare and live the life of the character, and it just is in me. So
I remember when I was doing acting and preparing for like monologues and auditions or lines, I was delivering pizzas at the time. And it was the best time to work on my lines because there was no podcast, there was no none of that. Like I had what were the garments that you would put in your car?
garments,
Like
yeah.
so I had that to show me where I was going for the pizzas, but I would just work on my lines in the car and by myself. Like it was the perfect time to do it. So
Yeah. And that's interesting you say that, because that was something I got from maybe Matthew McConaughey, was like, work on it in different times. Work on the lines in different times of your day. So like when you're doing, I'm going to be a different person and read something differently and internalize it differently when I just got off an awesome workout than I am delivering pizzas, trying to navigate my way and trying to learn these lines with this going on, or trying to cook and wash dishes and then learning that way.
Yeah.
Many different, and you get different colors. So
That's such a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
The unseen, sorry, I got someone pressure washing the outside of my house. I don't know if you could hear that. That was a little loud.
I just had some guys, I think, knocking to come in, and I'm like, what? Not right now.
Spooked me for a second. But you've said in the past, don't talk it, be about it. And I've seen this mantra sometimes, and I think it's a phenomenal one, because there are so many people out there right now, especially in social media age, where anybody can say anything. But it's not the talk, it's kind of how you walk with it. But if you actually do live by it, has there been a moment where you've had to prove that to yourself, where you're like, okay, I put myself in this situation, but I gotta really focus and make this thing happen now?
I think that now it's become an everyday occurrence. I think that I think my business is going to go under. I think I could go broke. I could never have an acting job again in my life. I think all these things daily, and I think that's what motivates me to keep going forward.
Yeah.
There's been many times like that, and it's the perseverance that you have to get, that mentality of, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I have to just do it. It's like Nike's saying, like, what's the most important word in just do it? Just. You don't know how you're going to do it. I don't know. I have so many people that come to me, and when I say that, I don't mean just like a saying. I mean, they actually come to me and ask, like, how do I do something? And I have had that thought many, 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 many times in my career. But I'm sure, like you starting this podcast, I'm sure like you with everything you wanted to do when you got that second chance, it's like you realize that no one's going to give you permission to do something. No one's going to give you approval. No one's going to say you're ready. No one's going to say, like, everybody wants degrees or acknowledgement. I wanted it in acting so many times, and I couldn't get it, because somebody's going to be a fan of you, somebody's not. Yeah. And you just have to have this insane belief in yourself, and who better to bet on than yourself? I've thought through the crash of 2008, when I got into real estate, to the pandemic, to to getting sued, not from myself or anything the company did, but just the we're in a litigious society. There's always a new thing that comes up, and I'm sure on the horizon there will be something else too. But everything gets you more prepared for the next time and the next hurdle, and the next obstacle that's going to come up. And I think that's the most successful people can deal with the most pressure.
Oh, man, you just dropped some bombs right there. One, I think, is everything that you go through helps you prepare for the future. It's almost a prerequisite that you have to go through in order to get you to that point. But also the mindset on top of things, having that, like, you don't know how you're going to do it, but you're still going to do it. I love the Bruce Lee saying, "Be like water. Water always finds a way."
Mm-hmm.
And it's super powerful because you can be. You said another line that I love: "Who better to bet on than bet on yourself?" Because I was on another podcast and I brought this up. I was asked the question of, why do people fear failure? And I actually said, I think people fear success just as much. Like, they're almost, what if it does work out and I have to live up to those expectations and I have to go through this and keep pushing forward and I have to do what I intended to do on, but what if it doesn't work out then? Can I live with myself? And I think a lot of people battle with that. So just really interesting points by you and stuff that I think about myself on a daily basis. What you were saying goes through your head. I do the same stuff. And I know a lot of people listening do as well. This kind of leads me into my next question with your definition for success has evolved over the years. Coming out of college, even high school, any of those early years to what you are now, a father, husband, and all your endeavors, how has that definition of success evolved over that time?
It used to be in really measurable things. Um, you know, let's put a mile marker on a millionaire in financial. Great. Now what? And then let's put a mile marker on acting. When I got my first, professional speaking role on new network TV show, right? I'm just giving you examples of what most people put their levels of success on, material kind of things, and to an extent that gives you some, I guess, belief in yourself, some more confidence, right? Get to a certain point in sales, but then what I realized is, and no one said this better than Matthew McConaughey, my level of success is myself 5 years down the road. It's myself 10 years down the road. I'll never get to where I'm satisfied, and that's not the point. It's 1% better. It's the growth. It's don't get me wrong, there's things you strive for, but I always know that I'm going to get there and just go, what's next? And I think the people that actually I think the people that get there too easily and they get there too quickly, that's why sometimes they implode. A feeling of non-deserving. Maybe an actor who's the number one guy all of a sudden, and people propel him there, and now he feels like he hasn't done the work to sustain it. The person that has won the lottery and is multi-millionaire. Things that have come too easily. So now, I mean, yeah, my levels of success along the way were maybe, hitting $1 million net worth. Great. Maybe getting a speaking role in a network TV show and going, yeah, once I do that, the gates are just going to open for me.
It's like you made it. You hit that.
I made it. I am at the level of, I am now included in the Leonardo DiCaprios of the world because I had a speaking role in, and it was billions. It was my first line.
Nice.
It was on HBO. It was, and then I realized, like, no, I'm not even scratching the surface yet. So there's been levels of success along the way, but they will never sustain themselves to where your mindset needs to be, which is the growth mindset, in my opinion.
The growth mindset is something that I wish more people would adopt, because it allows you to, another word that we mentioned earlier, sustain the highs and the lows, because everybody is so focused on that end result of what
Yeah.
that is going to be. And in our minds, we can dream it up in a million and one different ways, whether it's having a big house or getting that approval from the people that we've wanted that approval for. Like, oh, look what Kyle did in acting. He just won an Oscar, or literally landed a movie that is gross at the box office and blew all the numbers, whatever the case may be. You dream that up, but then you start realizing, like, yeah, it's really the journey where I get the fulfillment more than anything, is going
100%.
through what, like, learning these lessons, because, okay, what today really sucked, what I went through 6 months down the road might be the deciding factor that got me through to get what I'm about to do right now, or start this endeavor, because of what I went through a year ago or two, whatever the case may be.
It's interesting you say that. It's such a nuanced thing when you're talking about success and growth and all that stuff, because the true happiness comes in the growth and the journey. That's where the true happiness comes from. Now, you still need to have your markers to go towards, or you're not going to have anywhere. So, sure, it may sound crazy. I want to be the number one guy in acting. What's that mean? Just number one. I want to win an Oscar. That might sound crazy, but I want to win an Oscar. Well, some people, you'll have other people's limiting beliefs, and it's important not to think about that, because anything's possible. I mean, we're in a rock floating around, space, and we're amazing we're not getting hit by anything else. But like, if you think that you're one in a trillion to get born, nothing's impossible, but you have to have these markers to go towards. And then just realize that it's just about the journey that's going to get you there. And then the rest is a game. And then moving towards it and trying to navigate what worked and what didn't, and then progress towards it, and just trying to have fun along the way, I guess.
Love it, man. I want to touch on the Pottstown Film Festival, because this is super cool how you've found your way of giving back to your hometown. What's the bigger mission behind it, and what do you want it to mean for the next generation of creatives that are coming up right now?
The Pottstown Film Festival is definitely it's my mission that I'm giving back. I think that's super important to wherever level of success you get, to be able to reach back and pick somebody else up with you if you can. So I always knew I wanted to give back in some way. I think right when early on, and this was early on before I even had anything to give back, I just was like proud of coming from Pottstown and being, from the area, and just, especially moving towards the New York area too. Like, but even before that, going to college and everything, and thinking about like maybe doing a basketball tournament, charity basketball tournament or something at that time. But then, I lost track of that throughout the years, because I've just was so ingrained in my own journey and my own success. And believe me, I had doubts all along the way, in real estate, in acting. I had business partners in real estate that fell apart, and then I had to, get back on the horse. And there was always something I felt like I was always digging out of, and working up to. And then it finally got to a point after, I guess, the pandemic. Even during the pandemic, I started much more social media of like guiding, of just giving it away, giving my knowledge away that I thought worked for me over the years. And then, realizing and going back to giving back to my hometown, I thought of what better way than starting a film festival, which was something that I would have absolutely loved to have back then. I would have been hanging around, volunteering. It felt like acting to me and the movies was something that it was like so aspirational. It was like nobody from Pottstown did that. I think I remember talking to Lisa Waltz, who owns Waltz's Golf Farm, and seeing her one time, and she had a part in Pet Sematary 2, and I was working there as a cart boy, and she came, and I was so enthralled, and was like, she was from LA, and I was like, LA is like a dreamland. I didn't even know, it was never physically there. So like, it's more about that feeling and giving people that kind of hope that I think was important. So I just was like, well, I know films, I'm involved in this. And the first year was just like, again, coming back to, I don't know how to start a film festival. I don't know the first thing about a film festival. I had so many doubts then about, like, is this going to work? How do I do this? What do I do? And I remember it was in July that I went on, I said, Kyle, if I don't do this now, I announced that I was doing a film festival in Pottstown, PA, before I had anything planned or anything to do. I just said the first annual film festival is coming to Pottstown, PA. And I remember I got a lot of love, but I also got some people on the Pottstown revitalization page that said, well, you can't have a first annual if you never had a first one yet. And I go, whatever. There's always going to be haters coming out of peanut gallery. So the first year was it was a trial year. I knew I had a couple films, and this was another reason. There's a lot of ancillary reasons around having a film festival, right?
Sure.
One of the other ones was people would always ask me where they could see the stuff I was working on. And I wasn't at the time maybe working on network TV shows or big budget movies. So it was indie films that were playing in film festivals, and no film festivals around Pottstown. So I said, well, hey, what if I have a film festival and then I can even play? I remember that year I did a short film that I was an actor and producer on. And I also did a indie film that was like a $500,000 budget in Michigan, that I knew I could play those two films and just have a film festival and see what the turnout was. And I got a lot of people that were I got a lot of people from the advertisements that were like, people were asking me, what is a film festival? They thought it was like a music festival where they were going to go drink and party the whole time. But it was great. It was just like this whole thing. And that was the intent for, the film festival. The other thing is like, the other ancillary thing where what I realized after I started it was like, wow, I'm meeting all these amazing up and coming filmmakers, that I'm maybe now in touch with and can work with down the line. So it was like, it was great. And then just bringing it back to the town and having like these kids that are either in local colleges, and now we're doing a lot of outreach with like the high schools and the local colleges, allowing them to submit their film for free. And
that's awesome.
And then having something close, and then hopefully having a couple panels with I'm going to call in some director friends and actor friends, and then be able to have a panel and talk to some of the people with what's more importantly, real life people doing it in the world, not maybe a teacher that hasn't done this before, teaching a theater class or something like that, but like real professionals. I thought was super important. And now they see this and it's possible, and it allows them hopefully to dream big and think big. And then the economic impact, if hopefully it can bring some more, keep growing, where it's now like a week-long thing, just like there's other things in Pottstown that are,
it's blowing up.
Yeah.
The main strip of how many new businesses are there. And
it was really important to me to do on High Street, one. And it was also really important to me to do it in Pottstown, because other people were like, oh, why don't you live up near New York? Why wouldn't you do a film festival? I'm like, New York does not need another film festival. They have I'm not doing it just to do a film festival. That's not the point. It's to give back to my hometown.
It's incredible, man. And I absolutely love it. I know a ton of people do. The buzz is incredible, and the roots behind why you were doing it are even better. You're serving others, and people get a lot of fulfillment when they do that, and make that a piece of who they are and what is to become. And I'm very excited to see what that is in years down the road, because it does have monster potential of things like that. Last question before I let you go. Fast forward 20 years from now. Hopefully we have limited grays and things like that.
Something you can do about that.
Always something we can do. Looking back on everything that you've built, real estate, acting, production, there will probably be investing. There will probably even be more things on that list by that point. what's the one thing, and boiling it down to one thing is tough, but I'm going to make you do it. What is the one thing that you hope people say about Kyle Klaus?
He was a pioneer that trailblazed his own way.
Hell yeah. I like that.
As simple as that. But
I like that a lot.
The one thing I want to, that in a one-liner is it. But I do want to say I appreciate you saying 20 years, because I think not enough people play that 20-year plan of also, Tony Robbins said it best, people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So if you have that 10-year plan, that 20-year plan even, I mean, look, Tom Cruise is doing movies at 60 years old right now. He's blockbuster films. So it played the long game, and there's nothing that's unattainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Kyle, can't thank you enough for coming on. This was an absolute pleasure. I feel like I could talk to you for hours about these topics. We're definitely going to have you on again, but can't thank you enough for doing this again. And actually, I lied. One more question. Where can people follow you, all your work, and make sure that they're staying up to date with what's going on?
Okay, awesome. Everything is pretty much Kyle Klaus, at Kyle Klaus. Instagram is pretty much where I'm mostly as active as possible. That's Kyle Klaus, just my name spelled out. You can follow me on there. I'm also on Twitter and on YouTube. Now I have like 2 different YouTube channels, but you can find me on there if you just type in my name. And yeah, you'll see on my Instagram profile, it's pretty much everything. So get on Instagram, follow me there. I have a link to all the other stuff and platforms that you can follow me. And yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. This has been great. You're really good at this, and this was one of the most more fun and and good podcasts to be on.
I appreciate it, brother. And I'll make sure I include all the links for when this drops too. And
Cool.
For everybody listening, thank you for listening. And we'll catch you on another episode of the 1% Bttr Podcast soon. Take care, everyone.